Valentine's Day, and also happy first Sunday back since the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl. Okay, yeah, there we go. I love that we got more excited like Valentine's Day. Broncos! Welcome to Colorado. Hey, we have a fun and special and a little bit of a different service for you today. We're going to be doing about 2 of these every year, where we highlight a ministry that we support for an entire Sunday. We think it is so much a part of our DNA, of who we are, and of what we want to see happening. And so today, on Valentine's Day, it was kind of this awesome sort of melding, I guess, together of Valentine's Day. We were in the Psalm 130s, and so we were in Psalm 139, which is so incredibly powerful when we talk about Life Network. So if you have a Bible, can you please open to Psalm 139? If you need a Bible, please raise your hands, and we will get one to you. All right, we got right here. Can we get some people? Can we get people? I'm making promises. I need some help. All right, awesome. So Psalm 139. And the cool thing about Psalm 139, and I'm not going to be giving a sermon on Psalm 139, but rather we're going to be sharing how this psalm is lived out in our city through Life Network. So the cool thing about Psalm 139 is verses 13 through 16 get a lot of mention and publicity when it comes to sort of the pro-life dialogue, and rightly so. Right? We read here, "For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them." That's a pretty powerful section of Psalm 139. But the cool thing about Psalm 139, that's also really cool about what Life Network does, and we're going to hear about it, is that Life Network isn't just a, kind of a pro-life movement here in the city when it comes to the unborn. But Life Network is pro-life from conception all the way through life. They have all sorts of services that they offer and counseling that they provide. And we're going to hear testimonies about all of these different things. And Psalm 139 is the same way. David, it's a psalm of David, and David is here talking about how God not only formed him in the womb, but what else? Knew all the days of his life. Right, God, we were praying this morning with Kelly and Cindy Hand, which, by the way, quick plug, 9:15 every Sunday, back in the children's ministry area, we pray for this church service. And there's maybe 5 at the most, 6 at the most. And we'd love to get more people here to be praying for this church, be praying for this school. We were praying this morning, and Kelly said this word, intimate. Psalm 139 is a psalm about the intimacy with which God knows us. And that's an incredible promise on a Valentine's Day like today, right? Where the whole of the United States, save for like the Jehovah's Witness, the whole of the United States is going to be celebrating Valentine's Day today. And haven't they really, a lot of them have just missed the mark on what is love and what is real intimacy. And we know in the Bible that God demonstrates his love for us in this. Yet while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's why I told my wife I didn't get her a Valentine's Day present. I was like, "You already got Jesus, honey?" No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I did not get her a Valentine's Day present. I was not kidding about that. So, guys, now you can look good because of my public testimony. But this is the real intimacy that God has for his people. And so as we're hearing these stories, I want this idea of God not only loves us, but also this idea that God, this verse doesn't just apply to Christians. This passage, Psalm 139, I believe is true about everyone, that all people were created in the image and likeness of God, even those who are outside of the church. And so discipleship for those inside of the church, rooted and firmly established in love, and also evangelism, going out into the world. And the folks from Life Network are going to talk about that. How many people come to know Jesus through the organization is very, very sobering when you're a pastor of a church. So I'm going to invite Dr. Diane Foley to come on up here. And can we give Dr. Diane Foley a hand, please? She wasn't sure if she was going to be able to make it to share about Life Network. She is the president, would that be fair to say? Okay. She's the president of Life Network, and she got back from Haiti at about 11 o'clock last night, and is here this morning, so that's pretty fantastic. And she's going to talk a little bit about it, and then we're going to hear from some other folks from here in the church who attend Aletheia about what they're doing with Life Network. Here you go.
Thank you, Pastor Adam. It's a real privilege to be here to share with you this morning. I don't take this lightly. I come from a long family of pastors. Both my grandparents were pastors. I have a father who's a pastor. I have two brothers who are pastors. And I understand thus the incredible privilege of a pastor giving over their pulpit on a Sunday morning. And so I don't take this lightly. And I think you also need to know and really celebrate the leaders you have at this church. Because I can count on one hand the number of churches in this community that have given us this opportunity. And I'm starting my 4th year as president at Life Network. And it isn't for lack of asking and connecting and trying to connect with people. So the fact that your church really does value life and truly does partner with an organization like Life Network really says a lot about your character and who you are as a congregation. And Aletheia has been a very faithful supporter of Life Network. We have staff members that attend here, we have many volunteers, and many of you participate in our Walk for Life. I recognize a lot of faces as I'm looking around this morning, and so I want to say thank you for the commitment that you have made to make a difference in life. There's a verse in John chapter 10, verse 10, that says, "The thief comes to steal, to kill, and destroy, but I have come to give life and to give it abundantly." And when you break that verse down, I think it really signifies and typifies what we are about at Life Network. The thief is Satan, and his only goal is to steal and kill and destroy at any part of your life. That is his ultimate goal, and he really doesn't care how he gets it done. He knows how he can get at each person. And there are many different ways that he can destroy our lives, but I imagine if I had an opportunity to sit and talk with each of you individually today, each one of you could share a story with me of someone either in your family, maybe even yourselves, someone in your church whose life was destroyed based on a decision they made that involved lack of sexual integrity. And that is an issue that Satan doesn't want to lose. And that makes this battle that we fight a battle every day. It's a life and death battle. And the amazing thing is when people ask me about working at Life Network and being a part of this ministry, it is an amazing privilege to be involved on a daily basis and watch lives being saved, literally, every single day. The organization's ministry has been in this community for over 30 years. And in essence, this is a ministry that reaches people at a point of life and death decisions along the way. But the fact is that every single life has value. And every choice is important. And we recognize the fact that everybody has choices to make. The choice for life is a choice. The choice for abortion is a choice that people have. The choice for marriage, it's a choice. It's a choice to decide to parent. It's a choice to be a father. And all of the people involved with these are as important to God as the next person. And so sometimes people in the pro-life movement can get so caught up in saving the baby, which is very, very important. No question about that. But forget about the value and what we have as believers to share with that young woman who is facing a situation that she feels like she doesn't have any choices. her life has incredible value too, and we must speak to that. And the young man who is scared and doesn't think he's ready to be a father, doesn't even know how to be a father, never saw a father in his life to know how to do that. That life has value as well. The life of the person who made a decision maybe many, many years ago and hasn't told anybody about that, and recognizes now as they have gotten older, as they have become more educated, that they made a decision to take a life. Their life has value too. If we recognize that as a nation, the number of lives that have been lost to this decision of abortion in our country, estimated almost 58 million babies since 1973, that number boggles my mind. The estimate of the number of American lives lost in all of the wars since 1900 is a little over 1.2 million. When you put those numbers in perspective, it is incredible. And so we as believers are called to uphold the value of life and every single life. We have the opportunity of doing that through a number of outreaches in our organization. I'm going to give a brief overview of that, and then we have representatives from each of those that are going to share a little bit about that specific ministry and help you see and maybe come alongside of us and hear the stories of people whose lives have been impacted and changed as a result of coming in touch with Jesus. You know, we can help people in a situation, we can help them make a choice, we can help them with material things. We realize that the true life change comes when they have a personal encounter with Jesus Christ. And that is the ultimate goal of what we do. We don't force it on anybody, but every single person that comes through our door is asked, can we share something personal with you? Can I share with you how something has changed my life that I think might help you? If they say no, it's okay. But through the encounter that we have and the opportunity to see them over and over again through our mentoring programs, we have the opportunity to share the one thing that will actually truly change their life. And that is that they will find eternal life through relationship with Jesus Christ. Last year, there were 63 people who accepted Jesus Christ as a result of the Ministry of Life Network. It's an incredible opportunity to point people to Jesus in a time when they are very vulnerable. You know, I don't believe that anybody wakes up one morning and says, I want to have an abortion. I think that people wake up and think, I don't have any other choices, for whatever reason. There is nobody out there that will help me. My plans are, it's going to ruin my plans. My parents will kill me. My church family won't understand. There are so many reasons I could stand here for hours and list them all. But what I believe happens is they don't think there are any choices other than that one. We stand here in this community to say that there are other choices. And that is what we're all about. Offering choices that value every life. One of our programs is a prevention program where we actually have the opportunity to be in the public schools here in Colorado Springs. We come in as guest speakers. In those classrooms, we teach a 5-day program. We're actually in Pine Creek twice a year. We're in all of the high schools here, 27 high schools twice a year. We see about 7,000 students with a message, a public health, best health practices message. Now, the exciting thing is, we don't say that it's God's truth, but it doesn't matter because it is God's truth. There's nothing about science that has to put God on the defensive because He, after all, created it. And when we recognize and approach it from that standpoint, there's incredible impact. Our intervention programs are in our pregnancy centers, and we have 3 locations, one on Galley Road, one on Centennial, and then one down in Security Widefield. Have the opportunity to be open for young women who find themselves facing an unplanned pregnancy to come in for pre-pregnancy tests and for options counseling. That also involves men. And we're going to hear a little bit more about our men's services in a little bit. In addition, we offer testing and treatment for sexually transmitted diseases. I believe that the entry point in our community for young adults who want to be tested and don't want their parents to know about it is an organization that doesn't teach the truth. and doesn't offer other options. And so that's part of the reason why we offer this service at Life Network. In addition, about half of the young women who come into our clinics every day, about half of them have a negative pregnancy test. Now they're delighted with that news, but if we don't have an opportunity to impact them, they may be back again with that same decision. And so we spend time in education about the choices about sexual integrity and how their life has more value than what they've been told. Because the message out there is that it's not a big deal. And it truly is. We also have transformation in our Life Steps program, which is our mentoring program. When someone makes a decision for life, their external circumstances hasn't changed. And we as a church and a body of believers and organizations need to come alongside of them and provide support for them. Amen. Material support, emotional support, financial support, educational support, mentoring them on how to be families and helping to build strong families, because the family is the basis of our society. And as we can build strong families, we are going to have stronger communities. And then it gives us an opportunity to introduce them to Jesus, who is the only thing that will keep a family together in that relationship. Then we have what we call our restoration ministry. And this ministry is for anybody who has been affected somehow in their life by a previous abortion. It may be the person themselves, it may be the parents, it may be a college roommate who drove that roommate to the appointment and feels like they are a part of that, have never been able to really come to grips with the decision that they made. And that is called Bridges of Hope. You know, the staggering number to me, if there were 58 million babies, lives who were taken, that means there are 58 million women and 58 million men who are living with that decision. And most of the time, a large percentage of those have never told anybody that. And they're living with something that is affecting their life. And I'm here to say that there is restoration, there is healing, and there is forgiveness, and there is hope that comes from that, because that life, incredible life, has value as a result of that. And then our last piece is our partnership with the churches, like what we do with Aletheia. Coming alongside the church, providing information for your leaders, providing services for people sitting within your congregation, providing opportunities for you to volunteer in an area in the community that does make a difference. And so it's a partnership that works both ways. I want to introduce to you Cindy Hand. I think she's, oh, there you are. Cindy was a volunteer at Life Network and then came on staff for 8 years, and within the last year has gone back to the volunteer status as part of our Life Steps director. And Cindy's going to spend a little bit of time, she's brought a friend with her who is going to help us, and spend a little bit of time talking about the specific aspect of transformation that comes from our Life Steps program.
Thanks, Diane. It's so exciting to be a part of what God's doing through the Life Steps program. Because like Diane said, we offer them a choice for life. We want to come alongside them and help them make a choice for Jesus. And by doing that, we can do it in a practical way by teaching them how to be the best mom and dads that they can be. A lot of them don't have any mom or dad to model what it looks like to be a parent. And they might have grandma there, but she's tired. And so we get to step in a one-to-one relationship and teach them about what it looks like to be a mom and to be a dad. We have excellent teaching videos that they watch when they come in, and they have a little worksheet that they do. And then we sit down with them and we go over it. We'll talk about pregnancy health and getting ready to have their baby and how to take care of their bodies. If they're smoking, how to deal with that. Preparation for dealing with shaken baby syndrome, and how do they deal with their emotions and when they're super tired, because if you've been a mom or dad, you know you get super tired. And they need to know what their options are. So we get many, many opportunities to point them to great teaching tools on being a good mom and dad. And that opens that door because it's a one-to-one relationship to mentor them and to share the love of Jesus with them in our actions and our words, and have an open door to share the gospel message with them. So many are willing to listen and to hear what Jesus has done for them. And I want to share a little bit with you with my friend Crystal. I met her in Life Steps, and she's going to share a little bit with you on how her journey came to come to the Pregnancy Center, and then what happened in Life Steps and where she's at now. So Crystal, how did you end up coming to the Pregnancy Center?
Well, about 6.5 years ago, I had just given birth to a baby boy, and about 4 months later I found out I was pregnant again. And his father and I, we decided we can't take care of another child. We were going through relationship trouble, and bringing in another child wasn't going to fix that. So we decided an abortion would be the best thing at that time. And so I decided to go get the abortion. I made the appointment at Planned Parenthood, and I went. They prepped me for the abortion, but they showed me the ultrasound. And I wasn't walking with the Lord at that time, but I knew that I was going to kill my baby. And so I gave them half of my money for the abortion, and I left. And thank God there was a pregnancy center just down the street, and that's how I ended up.
So Crystal, it's not very common that you even get to see that ultrasound at a visit at Planned Parenthood. So God was doing an amazing thing. And then you went across the street and you had an appointment, and what happened there?
So they did another ultrasound there, and told me I was about 5 or 6 weeks pregnant. And they asked if I wanted counseling and if they could pray with me, and I let them. And they, let me decide which pregnancy center I wanted to go to, and the one in Galley was closest. So they gave me all my resources, set up my appointment, and that's how I met Cindy.
So Crystal came in one day for her very first appointment, and I remember her having tears down her eyes saying, I can't do this. I cannot be having a 4-month-old and be pregnant and have another baby, and what will my family think of me? And we said, we're going to do this together, and we want to bring Jesus in the picture. So I began to share with her how much Jesus loved her and what happened that day.
Well, first of all, I thought Cindy was a little crazy. I was like, if she knew all the bad things that I'm doing, she would not want to pray with me. And that's how it kind of started. She started praying with me, and then she started doing devotionals with me. And I still, at that point, was like, I'm just going to go along with this because I have no idea where this is going. But then, so Life Network sponsors Teas for Women. So we had a Christmas tea, they have Mother's Day teas, and at the Christmas tea in 2011, God really touched my heart, and I was like, okay, God, I'm ready to surrender. And I called Cindy the next day, and I gave my life to Christ.
So Crystal began her spiritual journey, along with growing as a mom and how to care for her little Lucy that came. And so tell them about your kids.
So I have Lucy, she's 5.5 now. She'll be 6 in April, and Starks, he'll be 7 in May. They're only a year apart. But they are just really a blessing. They've really saved my life.
So can you just share maybe one thing you remember about the practical thing about parenting and life steps?
I was able to go to parenting classes, and just the videos just on shaken baby syndrome, just things I didn't know. Even with having my son, I didn't learn all of those things, but having Lucy, I was able to go back and kind of backtrack and learn about all of those different things that I wouldn't have if I would have just completely done it on my own.
And then as part of Crystal's spiritual journey, we began to meet, like she said, even outside of Life Steps, and studying the Word together with a few other women and growing spiritually. And she began to just read the Word and apply it to her life. And where are you at now spiritually? What's happening?
A lot is happening. Life Network let me teach Bible study there. And so I did that for about 8 months, and I started discipleship training. I go to Rocky Mountain Calvary, that's my church home. And I'm in my 2nd year, and I'm almost completed. I get to go on a missions trip this summer, so God has really allowed me to dig deep and just be transformed, and it's been awesome.
That's what life steps is.
All right, thank you guys so much. Hey, if you came in late and you were going, what is happening today? We're doing a Life Network Sunday. We're highlighting a ministry that we support. And man, as Dr. Foley was talking, she was saying, how many people came to know Jesus last year? 63? 63 people came to know Christ last year. I don't know if you know this, but the average church in America sees 1.6 people. I don't know how they get 0.6 in person. They're almost there. They're sort of Unitarian. Sorry. Sees 1.6 people come to know Jesus every year. Just think about that. There's an organization here in our city that sees 63 people come to know Christ, and that's on a regular, ongoing basis. And Dr. Foley has talked a lot about how, how they're kind of a bridge, like they're looking for churches in the city. They're not a church. I heard it described at one dinner, at one of the Life Network dinners, as like a lifeboat. They're just kind of rescuing people and bringing them in. And man, so we want to be a church here that is welcoming for those in our community, that we can provide this thing. I'm going to introduce Sarah Yakeley. She's going to come up here. She's going to talk a little bit about the Crisis Pregnancy Center and what they're doing. And you'll see familiar faces, right? If you've seen Cindy and Kelly Hand, you've probably seen Sarah up here singing her heart out. And we're doing this because we want you to know we are not just involved financially with Life Network, though we are. We were able to support them with about $10,000 this year, which was huge when you look around and you see the church our size. But man, our human capital, right? Our involvement, our volunteering is almost even more valuable. And so Sarah's going to share a little bit about what she is doing at Life Network. You're not a volunteer, right? No, she's an employee, but we'll have a chance at the end to pray for all the volunteers along with all the employees of Life Network. Here you go, Sarah.
Thank you, Adam. Well, I am the assistant director in the pregnancy center at our Galley location, and I'm also the volunteer coordinator. So if anyone submits an application to volunteer with us, that comes through me, and I process all of that. And I've been on staff for about a year now, and I first fell in love with pregnancy centers about 7 years ago. I was a volunteer when I lived in Texas, and once you start volunteering at a pregnancy center, it gets in you, and it changes your life, and it's an incredible ministry to be a part of. And so at the pregnancy center, we are really the first face that a client will see before they can be in Life Steps, before they can be in the men's program. They see us in the pregnancy center because, as Dr. Foley said, they come in and they're in a crisis, and a lot of them don't want to be pregnant. And so we get to sit down with them and talk to them and help them to see beyond just this moment and beyond the current crisis that they're in. And we get to talk to them about their choices. When you're pregnant, you have 3 options. You can parent, you can make an adoption plan, and obviously they can choose abortion. And so we talk to them about what each of those things is going to look like in their life if they choose it. We talk about the risks. We want them to make an educated choice, and obviously we don't want them to choose abortion, but we are not going to condemn her. We are going to love her, and if she goes that route, then we want her to come back to us. And we want her to know that she can come and she can receive support and help from us. And we do the pregnancy testing. We also do limited ultrasounds at the pregnancy center. And I can't remember your name. She was saying the ultrasound is a big deal. When these clients see the ultrasound, it can change their perspective. And I had a client that came in about a month ago. She was a young woman, and she had just recently relocated to Colorado Springs. Didn't really have a support system. She had a boyfriend and a brother here, and they were both in the military. So she felt very alone and very scared. And she thought she was pregnant. She thought maybe she was around 7 weeks. And so she came in, and I was talking with her about her options. And she had done some partying over Christmas and New Year's, and she was very concerned about the health of her baby. And so she was asking me, she said, how late is it that I can have an abortion? So she had that in her mind, that was what she was going to do. So we talked some more, and we were able to get her in for ultrasound right away, which doesn't usually happen. But our nurses were there, and we had openings, and so we got this lady in right away, right after I met with her. And she was able to see her baby up on the screen, and she was able to see that heartbeat. And she was very shocked because she thought she was 7 weeks along. Well, it turns out she was 17 weeks along. And it was incredible seeing that big baby on the screen. And she was crying, and she was overwhelmed. And she left that day choosing life. And that is what we do at the pregnancy center. And we come alongside these women, and once they come to the pregnancy center and they choose to parent, we want them to get in Life Steps because we want to walk alongside them. And as Dr. Foley said, we do STD testing as well in the pregnancy center because we want to have another point of contact with these clients. When they have a negative test, we encourage them to come back in and get tested for STDs, because we want to talk to them about their life choices. We want to talk to them about how this affects your life and how you can avoid the risks that you're taking by having sex outside of marriage. And it's incredible. And the volunteers in the pregnancy center, they're called client advocates, and they get to reach these women. They get to talk to these women that are coming in so overwhelmed, so emotional, not knowing what to do, and we get to be the ones to help them see what their future could look like if they choose life.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm not sure if anybody watched any of the commercials when the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl. There we go. But there was, it was interesting because there was a commercial, I don't know if you saw it, where a guy had a Doritos bag. Remember that? And like he's moving it and the baby is in. And you know what's crazy about this battle that we see a lot of us in, is this commercial, actually the column, like the pro-choice side of things, actually got upset with Doritos because they said that it gave a fetus personality. There was a whole article that came out about it. I'm like, guys, this is craziness that we're dealing with today. I mean, if you ask me, I think I remember I was asking my wife this one time, we were driving up to South Dakota when we were first married. I said, what are we going to look back on this day and age and go, I can't believe we were that naive as a society that we permitted this thing to happen. You know, like when you study like slavery and racism, you look back on that and you're like, how did Christians support that? Or because we were driving through like a Native American country, and I was like, how can we be so naive to treat people as second-class citizens? And I thought, this is our issue, right? This is the thing that we're going to look back on, that society is going to go, man, those Americans, they they aborted how many children? That is insane, right? And that's, I mean, obviously it's conjecture, it's my opinion, but man, I am so overwhelmed with what's going on with Life Network. And as I mentioned before, they do, so we've got the Crisis Pregnancy Center, and that's kind of probably the thing that they're known for. But Dr. Foley mentioned this thing, Education for a Lifetime. I'm gonna have Joel Geen come up, and Joel has taught some of these classes in the public schools. Right, like we lament, like there's no prayer in school, or you can't, the Ten Commandments can't be in school, and yet we've been able to find these incredible ways to share the truth of how God has created people in the schools, and so they're not just an organization that is pro-life in the womb. They are in fact pro-life all over the place, right? This is truly a pro-life network, right? Jesus came so we may have life and have life to the fullest. So I'm going to have Joel share for a little bit about Education for a Lifetime and what his involvement's been there.
I don't work directly for Life Network, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what it is to be a volunteer and why I volunteer. And people volunteer for different reasons. Adam kind of hit it on the head with what he was saying before I stepped up here. When you look at the scale of what's happening with abortion in the United States and what's happening with the value of a person, especially an unborn person, it's one of those things where I don't know about you, but it's almost better just to not think about it. It's kind of how I feel. It's because once you start thinking about it and the gravity hits you, then it's depressing and you feel like there's nothing you can do. And I work in finance, and it's really not related to the work that Life Network directly does. And there's always, you can give money, and that's good, and that's helpful when you can find a good organization to do that. And I believe Life Network is a good organization, and I do financially support them. But you look at it personally. You say, I don't want to be one of those people that personally stood by and watched this happen. I don't want my children's children to look back and say, I can't take anything he said seriously because he stood around while babies were being murdered and didn't say anything and didn't do anything. But on the other hand, you're over here going, well, what am I supposed to do? Go carry a sign and look like a crazy person somewhere? I don't really feel called to do that either. So I encourage you to think about what you may have been equipped with and what may be able to add some value somewhere. And for me, what somebody pointed out to me is they said, Joel, you've spent a lot of time speaking in schools, in high schools, and there's this organization, and they have this program called Education for Life, and they actually go into high schools and they talk to kids about things like sex and drugs and pornography. And I said, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. And so, and I did used to do some speaking with the Pregnancy Center out of Boulder, and believe me, speaking in Boulder is a very, very interesting experience. We weren't actually allowed to use the word marriage. So it was a relief to be able to speak with Education for Life and be able to give a little bit more of a direct and specific message. But so what we do with Education for Life, and it is made up of volunteer speakers, and I'm just one of them, and they basically just try and keep me from going too far off script and getting them in trouble as they get invited into these schools, which is an amazing thing if you think about it. 27 plus schools, talk to 7,000 kids who are not me personally, but across between the employees and the volunteers. We're able to go into these schools and take an entire 5 days and talk to them about really important things. And most of the time, we're not talking directly about abortion, and we're not talking directly about sex. We're talking about the goals that these students have with their lives, the choices they're making that make them more likely to accomplish those goals or less likely to accomplish those goals, and how to consider the choices they make in terms of risk. And I'm making it sound overly technical. We don't necessarily go into this kind of depth, but the long and short of it is, I don't walk into a classroom expecting these kids to do a 180-degree turn just based on what some tall, skinny guy has to say about their life. It's really not how high schoolers work. At least it's not how I worked when I was in high school, and I know it's not how Adam worked when he was in high school, because we were at the same high school and saw each other, and it's not how it worked. But what I can conceive of is that if I can get them to think through things and consider some perspectives that maybe they hadn't thought about, then let's say that they make 5%, they take 5% less risk in their decisions over the next several years. Just by thinking a little bit about the relationships they have, whether or not that's a healthy relationship. Maybe they think a little bit harder about how much they drink at parties or whether or not they drink at parties. Maybe they don't feel quite so comfortable spending as much time looking at garbage on the internet. Maybe they're a little more careful in their relationships in the lines that they set. Say it's just 5%. Well, if you think of that, if you've got 6,000 or 7,000 students taking slightly less risk over the course of several years as they go on into college and adulthood, does that make a big difference? Well, yeah, it does. It makes a huge difference. Does that potentially prevent some more abortions that could have happened? Does that prevent some, does that cut down on the abuse in relationships? Does that cut down on teens, and in some cases practically preteens, getting into sexually explicit material and sexually explicit scenarios and relationships? Yeah, it helps. And part of me likes that I can't necessarily quantify exactly how that helps, because in my pride and my arrogance, if I were directly responsible for 63 people a year coming to know the Lord, I would get caught up in that. But I'm excited that when I see my King in heaven, that he may have some good news and say, hey, that time you spent was useful. Here's some people you can talk to. And that's exciting for me. It gives me something that I can do. And believe me, I have tremendous respect for the staff at Life Network, the people who work day in, day out, and deal with this stuff every day. I mean, my volunteer capacity is 3 or 4 days a semester. I go to different schools. Sometimes I can spend a whole day talking to different classes. Sometimes I can spend a half day. Sometimes I can go in a couple times in a week. That's it. The rest of the time I spend at work doing my normal thing. But it does make a difference. I'm convinced of that. And I'm convinced, even though I don't really have the time and have had to explain to my boss why I'm gone for a Wednesday in the middle of a week, it's worth doing, because I think it's one of those things that the Lord has equipped me to do. So I would encourage you to think about where the Lord has equipped you, and look at organizations like Life Network and say, what do they offer so that I don't have to be one of those silent, confused, frustrated bystanders that kind of hopes to never be associated with this element of our society for the next generations? Because I believe what Adam said is absolutely true. People are going to look back and say, I can't pay attention to what they said. Look at what they watched. Look at what they stood by and said nothing on. So this isn't a panacea, but it helps. And Life Network is one of the most potent, powerful organizations offering these opportunities. But guys, they need the help. They need the financial support. They need the volunteer support. We need a lot more movement in these areas. One of the number one, and then I'll give the mic back to Adam and be quiet for a while. One of the number one things that I hear from students, besides them thanking us for coming in and having these honest conversations with them, is they say, I've never heard this before. Many students, especially in Boulder, but even more so in Colorado Springs, many students haven't had anybody tell them, hey, you know what? This is what pornography actually does to your brain when you watch it. And we have a generation of this, and we don't know what the consequences are going to be because nobody's ever really seen this kind of movement in society on this scale before. Should we be concerned? And the students almost universally will say, yes, we should be concerned. Or to say, hey, you know what? This is the long-term consequences of what a relationship with these characteristics can do in your life. People aren't having these conversations because most people aren't equipped to have these conversations. Life Network has equipped me with statistics and science and a script and other things to help keep me on track so that I can have these conversations with my own children, with people over coffee, and with a whole bunch of students in classrooms. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to do something. I think people should know more and more about what Life Network's doing. I'm glad and I appreciate that Adam and the team here have put together this Sunday so that we can understand that, because we just can't go on being quiet and not paying attention to this horrendous sin that's happening in our society, this grievous thing that's happening that we're just pretending isn't happening. So, thanks very much.
I'm going to have Rob Denlow come up, and Joel had promised me he wouldn't talk about our high school days, so thanks for breaking your promise. So Rob is another Alathian. That's a weird word. Does that feel weird to say that? Or are you kind of all right with it? Seems a little... Are we good? I'm getting mixed reviews on this one. But this is one of this particular organization, and then we're going to be kind of ending it with, or this particular part of the organization, another one, I think are the parts of Life Network that not many people really know about, but are so incredibly valuable as we talk about this idea of healing and restoration, and total healing and restoration in relationships, and for men specifically, who are kind of the ones like, you hear like, oh, you're a man, you can't have opinions on this particular thing. Well, it takes two people to make a child, and one of them is a man. So there's a big part of that. What are you laughing about? No, I'm just playing. So Rob's going to share a little bit of what he does with men's services.
Thanks, Adam. Yep. Usually people are pretty surprised when they see me part of Life Network. Most people recognize the Colorado Springs Pregnancy Center, and they say that's a woman's place. And they don't understand what role any kind of men's services or men's ministry of any sort would have in a pregnancy center. And for the most part, actually, for decades, actually, in the pregnancy center environment, that was the case. Men were not welcome there. Recently, we've just come to this place in our society where we're recognizing, wait a minute, simple math like Adam had there, it takes two. And we're recognizing there's somebody we're not talking to about this decision to choose life. We have this epidemic in America and in all over the world, actually, of fatherlessness. We treat symptoms. We really do. We treat drugs, we treat gangs, we do all these other things. When you come back to it, when you start going deeper into it, almost always at the core of each of those issues is fatherlessness. There are no fathers around. Most of our men and women that come into our center did not have a father or was a poor example of a father in their lives. So they come through our doors, oftentimes, not understanding what a father is or the impact of a father in their life. It's really sad, actually. I meet guys every day in our pregnancy center. I come up and I I congratulate them, I shake their hand, I meet them eye to eye, and I say, hey, congratulations, you're going to be a dad. And they have this deer in the headlights look, which we all had as dads, I know. But this look of what does that mean? It's an alien term to them. They don't know. They've never experienced a father in their life. They have no model. Or the model they have is on some really cheesy TV show or inappropriate TV show. A bad example of a father. And they don't know what they're going to do. So this is where we step in. What do we do? They generally put me at the end of all these because men's services at Life Network is a part of each of the outreaches that you've heard about today. We play an active role in each of those things. The first one, Colorado Springs Pregnancy Center that Sarah talked about. We have a chance to meet these guys out in the lobby and talk to them and share with them. What we find is generally they have the same concerns, the same fears, everything that these women have. And what I've come to find is there's three kinds of guys that I meet in those lobbies. One is this guy that is just jived. He's really pumped up about being a dad. That's always a fun one because he's just giddy, and you can talk to him and you can say, hey, we've got services for you and we're so excited for you. The second one is this individual that's negative. He says, I don't want this child, I want her to have an abortion. And our role then is to be able to come alongside him and try to find out what those fears are. Our goal would be to take that guy, walk with him a little bit, talk with him a little bit, and encourage him. Try to find out how we could help him be, instead of a negative force in that decision for life, be a positive force that comes alongside her and helps her choose life. And then the third person, the third guy that we meet, is this guy that society has told him this, and he believes it wholeheartedly. Regardless of the decision that she makes, I'm going to support it. He's this in-between. And really, that's what our society's come to. They've said, you know, this is a woman's choice. You do not have an opinion here. And so we can come along him and say, you know something, what do you want to do? Actually, Cindy and I mentored a couple. It's a great example of this as Cindy came up here talking. She was back talking with Cindy, and I was meeting for the first time with this young man. And just getting to know each other. And he said, you need to understand, Rob, I'm pro-choice. And regardless of what she chooses, I'm going to support her. And I said, okay, but let me ask you this. What do you want? He said, oh, I can't wait. I really want to be a dad. I said, have you told her this? He said, no. The great news is he did tell her this, and they did enter into the Life Steps program, and they do have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter now. But this is very common, so we can come alongside each of these guys and help them. Sorry here, I thought I'd fix my phone. Life Steps. I think of Life Steps as a discipleship program for parenting. It's really what it comes down to. I correlate it to the church all the time. If the church is going to come alongside somebody and say, hey, we want to introduce you to Christ, and we want you to understand what it means to have him as Lord and Savior, and that person makes that decision, the church has a responsibility to walk alongside that person and disciple them in Christ, right? Yep. So we as Life Network and the Pregnancy Center, if we're going to encourage somebody to come alongside and say, hey, choose life. Life Steps program is that discipleship program for parenting, to come alongside and say, this is what it means like to be a parent. These are the tools. These are some of the resources. This is what it means to be a father. And we can do that. A big part of who we are is evangelism. It is sharing Christ. And I've been in ministry off and on for quite a few years now, and 1 Corinthians 3:7 always just speaks to me. It says, so neither he who plants or he who waters is anything, but only God who makes things grow. Truly, I believe our role is to do exactly what Dr. Foley said, to introduce them to Jesus. Because we can plant, we can water, we can give them that education, those tools. It's God that transforms that heart and makes them into the parents that they're called to be. And a great example of this, I'm sorry, I'm just going on and on. I get excited sometimes, even though I told you. Yes, yes. I've been watching. I was discipling this young man in the fatherhood program, and we had a chance to share with him about the good news of Jesus Christ. And I went through a Bible tract, and I shared my testimony, and we just went through this. And this is right before Christmas, I remember. And I said, got to the end, and this is the point where you say yes or no, And I said, what do you think of that? And everything in my sense said, this guy's going to make a big decision today. And I was so excited. And he said, not right now. And my first, obviously, thing was disappointment. But he said, the new year's coming, and I really want to make some changes in the new year. Maybe then. So, one of the things we always talk about is, and we pray about, is discerning when and how to say everything. And since God's saying, okay, let this go for now. I gave him that Bible tract, and I let him go. And I said, I hope I get to speak to him again. Fast forward a few weeks into January, and I get to meet with him again. And he tells me the story. I asked right when I saw him, how'd it go? And he said, well, my brother's in the Army, and he came back, and I got to go back with him to Washington. And I pulled out one night, we were halfway through, we stopped at a hotel, and I pulled out that Bible tract. And I said, what do you think of this? And those two read through that together. And somewhere in between here and Washington, God moved in the hearts of both those young men. And they both accepted Christ. Sorry. I share this story all the time. She used to always make me do this just to see me broken up. This is what it's about. Certainly, the outcome of everything that we've talked about today is saving the babies. But this is about family. This is about encouraging. This is not just family of those three, but the family of Christ. It's about introducing them to God, God transforming people's hearts. This is what it's about. And this is why we exist as Life Network. And it's why, actually, I was telling Adam beforehand how excited I am that Aletheia has partnered. And I think partnership is a great word for us here. Partnering with us. We share the same DNA. I really believe Life Network and Aletheia does. The same priorities. There are a lot of volunteers and staff that are in this here every Sunday. And I think that's not a coincidence. I know you all, part of your DNA is reading the Bible. Every Sunday you pull out the Bible and you say, this is what we're about. And I want to share James 1:27, and I want to just encourage you not only to pray through what Adam talked about on Psalm 139 at the beginning, but this James 1:27. Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. To love the orphans and the widows. That's what we're about. We are here to show the love of Christ to each of these people that walk through our doors. And we just want to thank you so much for hosting us today. It is such a blessing. Thank you.
I'm going to have the worship team come on up. And, Psalm 139 ends here. David says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. See if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. So we've talked about some tough subjects, right? And this is a difficult topic. I was talking with Dr. Foley and Rob earlier this week. It was, a lot of churches don't bring us in because it's a tough subject. We want to talk about the hard things in our culture and our society. We want to understand what can we do about it, like Joel was saying. And so we're going to be singing a song right now that is a song about victory and overcoming our chains and overcoming the sin that is in our life. We didn't get a chance to hear about the Bridges of Hope, but this counseling that happens for men and women who may be in their 50s, 60s, 70s, where they just have not let this go. Or maybe you're a young person and you have been struggling with some kind of an online addiction, or maybe you are a woman here and you've made bad choices this weekend, or you're a man and you made some bad choices. Well, here's the deal. Today, right now, we're going to be singing and proclaiming a song to our Father in heaven, who is really the source, the ultimate source of real life transformation. Amen? And so we love partnering with organizations like Life Network because they are, along with this church, pointing people to Jesus, who ultimately is the one who can just unshackle us and set us free from the prison of guilt, from the prison of condemnation, and let us be free. All right, so would you guys stand with us? You might feel like you have to clap a little bit during the song. All right, kids, that's okay. If you want to do a little jig, we're all right with that. We've got a banjo, for crying out loud. All right? And so we are going to celebrate not only what God is doing through Life Network, we're going to celebrate what God is doing in all of our lives. You guys ready for this? All right, let's go.